usually does. He was screaming at me, too. He kept on screaming nonsense for almost an hour without stopping. In the end, he left the house and slammed the door shut so hard it almost broke. All of that anger, and it was just over dinner. Mom had made him chicken, and he wanted pork, but I was used to it. The smallest thing.
If meat could help them cross treacherous water.
Yeah.
Did she make me how to break pots?
It can definitely help you power through work. Power through with
And behind the wall, put a trap in and I'll break the wall. They like breaking beds so much.
He didn't need much of an excuse to get angry and violent. My poor mom was left sitting on the floor, crying. I sat beside her and hugged her. She didn't deserve to be with a man like that. Even though he was my dad, I never loved him. For so long, I tried to convince my mom to leave him, but for some reason, she'd always get angry from that idea. She was convinced that deep down, he was a good man, and that he would change. So I had given up trying to convince her. I just wanted to protect her. However, that didn't mean I didn't want to find us a solution to save us all from this torture. I don't know how I slept that night. All I knew was that after I passed out, I dreamt of a warm home and a normal life. Though when I woke up, my dreams didn't come true. I woke up to an even worse nightmare. My dad had come back home drunk. He was swaying from left to right and started smashing everything in sight. The sound made me come running out of my bedroom. I feared he might hurt my mom, but what I saw made my heart break. My mom was standing at the bottom of the stairs, trying to stop my dad from getting to me. When she laid her eyes on me, she started crying hysterically. She was afraid he'd hurt me, but once he saw me, he ran towards me like a maniac. Why was he acting like a crazy person? What did he want from me? I closed my eyes, scared he was going to hit me, but he didn't. He just started shouting at me with a weird request. It was like my dad had completely lost his mind. He held me by the shoulders, and with his other hand, he was holding a very small box. He looked me right in the eye and said, "Your blue eyes aren't fooling me. Spit in this box." I tried breaking free from his grasp, but I didn't succeed. He asked me again, but this time louder, "Spit!" So I did. He left the house, slamming the door behind him, and my mom ran towards me and asked me if I was all right. I told her I was fine, but I really wasn't. I had had enough of living in fear. I had no idea why he did all of this, and truth be told, I didn't care. All I cared about was keeping this man away from me and my mom. My mom started tidying the house and clearing up everything he had smashed. I noticed something broken on the floor. It was a vase, smashed beyond repair. It had been my grandma's and her mom's before, and had been passed on to my mom. It was her most treasured possession, and all she had of her family. Now it was broken, and there was nothing left. I exploded with anger and told my mom that I had had enough. I was going to call the police and tell them everything. I wanted him to suffer, and to suffer for all they had put me and my mom through. She started to shiver, and the color from her face drained. She begged me not to, and started to cry. Then she said something that really shocked me. She said that if anyone deserved to go to prison, it was her. But how? My mom is the kindest person you could ever meet. She would do anything for me and my dad, and always had done. My mom was barely 18 when she had me, which caused my father to marry her and move into this home. It was left to my mom after her mother's death. He didn't have any money or a house of his own. Being young and pregnant, she had no choice but to marry him, and ever since, she had been putting up with his cruel and violent behavior. How could this be her fault? I asked her to explain why she was to blame, and after a lot of nagging, she gave in. Let me be honest with you. The truth she told me was hard. I didn't believe it at first, and I hoped that she was wrong. It turns out that Mom had been wanting to leave Dad for a while. For the past few weeks, she had been consulting with a lawyer in secret about getting a divorce. When my dad discovered this, he went crazy. Not only would he lose his wife, but he would lose his home as well. In the middle of his anger, he started screaming at
Our planet never ceases to amaze us. The best is always waiting to be discovered.
These these people who tell you about what's happened in their life, and it's quite amusing because it's all cartoony.
It's a land of fascination.
and threatening her that he was going to do everything to get full custody of me. And he threatened that if he lost custody in the courts, he would kidnap me. I couldn't believe it when she told me.
Yeah.
My own dad threatened to kidnap me. But then my mom told him something that had changed everything.
No, I'm gonna be at my
His
nan's.
biological daughter. She said that when she fell pregnant with me, she had been cheating on him with someone. It
Yeah.
was so long ago she couldn't even remember his name. All these years, he believed that I was his daughter, but I never was. He didn't believe her at first, because my mom and I looked nothing alike. It is true that I have her curly hair, but my blue eyes and fair skin are just like his. When he had found this out, he had stormed out of the house. Now it made sense that he had told me he wouldn't want to be fooled by my blue eyes, but I didn't understand why he had wanted me to spit in a box. She told me she didn't know either. I was supposed to be angry that my mom had kept this from me from all these years, but I wasn't. It was the opposite. I was relieved that I might not be related to the man after all. At least this way I wouldn't have to live with him. And if I wasn't his, he might not want to kidnap me either. The whole spitting thing was still stuck in my mind. I tried my best to make my mom relax, but on the inside, I wasn't calm at all. I was afraid of my dad's return. But that was the last we saw of that man. For the next month, he didn't return, even to get his belongings. During that month, I didn't ask my mom about the identity of my father. All I wanted was for the two of us to be left alone and to be happy. I don't remember my whole life spending a month so peaceful, but soon that ended. One night, while my mom and I were having dinner, we heard a loud banging at the door. The first thing that we thought was that it was my dad. We were afraid to open the door. If it really was my dad, then he was up to no good. I hid behind the kitchen door, clutching a saucepan, ready to defend myself. My mom was stood behind me trembling. It was silent for a while, and whoever was behind the door had gone. Then suddenly, we heard something crash at the door hard until it broke the locks, and someone entered the house. They came running toward us, and I lifted the saucepan up high before swinging it as hard as I could at their head. But it wasn't my dad. You won't believe who the poor guy was I ended up hitting. When I opened my eyes, I saw a police officer on the floor, rubbing his head. The police were the ones knocking at the door. When they didn't get an answer, they had smashed in. The poor guy didn't know that there was a pan waiting for him on the other side of the door. Yes, they came for me, but not to take me for my mom and return me to my dad, but because I was a suspect in a murder case. It is no doubt that what you're about to hear is the strangest thing ever. They said that I was a suspect in a case that happened 16 years ago. The police officer explained that when the crime happened, they found human hair in the victim's hands. The victim must have been defending herself and pulled out their murderer's hair. But what does this have to do with me? I was only 18, so there was no way I could be the murderer. The police told me that they had done a DNA test on the hair sample, and it matched my DNA. How did they figure this out? Well, when my dad came and acted like crazy that night, he had wanted my saliva to get a sample of my DNA. He had got it so that he could test if I was really his daughter or not. And when he had sent my saliva off to see if I was his daughter, it had been matched with that of a criminal.
What?
Mom and I sat down and spoke to the police, who realized that they had come for the wrong culprit. The DNA results meant that I wasn't the murderer. My dad was. Not only was he a murderer, but he was also my real dad. I couldn't believe it. Mom started crying and admitted that she knew he was my real dad all along. She had lied to him to try and get rid of him and to protect me. The police kept us under surveillance until 2 weeks later, when my dad turned up, angry and drunk. They arrested him and promised us we would never have to see him again. And now, after they finally arrested him, the jury decided to let him not rot in jail for murder. All these years we had been living with a criminal, and we both had no idea. I've forgiven my mom for lying to me and telling me I wasn't his daughter. I know she did it to try and keep me safe. And besides, she is a victim of him and had been for years. He may be my biological father, but I will never think of that monster as my dad again. So guys, if you liked my story, please hit the like button. And don't forget to comment and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
You said that after I got killed. You watching my stream or something?
Be optimistic. Be realistic. Don't
Yeah. Cause as soon as I got killed, you was like, oh Harry, like I killed you or something.
Hello, my name is Sammy, and I'm a grade 8 student. My story began almost a year and a half ago. My parents got married at a young age, and they were madly in love with each other. But my mom had me 6 years after their marriage. Their financial status wasn't that great when they got married, so they decided to wait for some time before having a baby. My mom died right after I was born, which was absolutely devastating for my dad. He spent most of his time working hard to look after me, and to be able to afford to pay for a nanny for me. He used to tell me often that I reminded him of Mom, and that I looked so similar to her, and that he loved me twice as much because of that. I spent most of my life alone. I had no brothers or sisters, no mom, and my dad was barely around to spend time with me. It was really boring. So, I decided I had to do something about the boredom, and it just so happens that I found a very fun way to do that. I won't lie to you, I tried so many different activities and hobbies, like painting, playing music, dancing and reading, but none of them really caught my attention. Plus, I wasn't very talented, to be honest, so none of them really worked out for me. This led me to try and learn other things that looked more fun. I dabbled in cookery, various ball games, video games.
What?
I even tried to have a pet. Nothing worked. Everything seemed fun at first, but before long, I'd find these activities pretty dull. The situation kept on repeating until one day when I discovered my new talent. And, well, it was a little weird.
28, I'm level 28.
On my way back from school, I was passing by the grocery store when I suddenly started to crave some of the sweets lined up on the
not
shelf.
really, let me pause
Those
this.
tasty chocolate.
So, no, not really. What? Nah. I've turned this up so you can hear it.
And sugary snacks were calling my name. So I thought to myself, why don't I buy some? Once I got that craving, there was no one that could come between me and all that sugar. I pushed the store's glass door open and went in. I walked by dozens of shelves until I finally reached the back of the store where they keep all the sweets. I grabbed a chocolate bar and began to read the ingredients to see if it contained any pistachio. I'm allergic to it. But while reading the ingredients, I suddenly heard a loud noise. It startled me for a moment, and without even realizing, I put the chocolate bar under my coat. I have no idea why I did it at the time, but I guess I wasn't thinking straight because of the loud noise I'd heard. I looked around me and there was no one around. It turned out that the sound that I'd heard was nothing more than one of the employees dropping some kind of box. I was still hiding the chocolate bar under my coat when I reached the front of the store, and by then, I had this weird idea. What if I just took the chocolate bar without actually paying for it? I didn't have much money in my pocket, and I couldn't ask my dad for more money. I'd already asked him for too much that week. So, saving a little money didn't sound like such a bad idea, actually. I looked at the corner of the store and the surrounding walls to see if there were any security cameras. I walked towards the exit door, but then an employee called out to me, "Hey, miss!" I looked at him in terror and thought to myself, it's over. I've been caught. He walked toward me calmly and asked me if I needed help finding anything, since I was walking out of the store empty-handed. I thanked him, wished him a nice day, and walked out of the store with my heart banging inside of my chest. Who knew stealing could be that easy? When I came out of the store, I walked across the street and thought about what I had just done. It had been pretty scary, but seeing as it was over, and I hadn't been caught, it suddenly seemed kind of fun and thrilling. Adrenaline was pumping through my body. I sat on a nearby bench and took the chocolate bar out of my coat. I started to remove its cover with a weird smile on my face, and took a bite. It was the most delicious thing I had ever tasted. I returned home full of pride at what I'd done, and the feeling stayed with me for a while, even though I knew it was wrong to steal. I figured this time it was okay, because it was just a bar of chocolate, and I hadn't told anyone. By the next day, the thrill of it all had gone, and once again, I was drowning in boredom. A few days later, I was in the library studying math, which I seriously hated. A guy from my class was sitting right next to me.
What?
It looked like he was studying hard. Unlike me, who had a million thoughts
The
whirling.
dingo's easy to get
I
headshots
was
with though.
distracted by everything. The unending shelves that were full of books, the fat librarian who was rearranging books, even the stuff that was on the table that belonged to the guy next to me. You name it, I was thinking about it. The boy's belongings were scattered across the table. It was an absolute mess. Pencils and pens of different colors and sizes, his keychain, and an iPod with bright blue earphones attached to it. The earphones definitely looked very appealing, and I didn't have any. I could almost bet that listening to music through such amazing earphones would make the music quality sound like something out of this world. Besides, they were just earphones nonetheless. Nothing would happen to the guy if I just took them. I mean, he wouldn't die or something because he'd lost his earphones, right? I tried to let go of the idea and to concentrate as much as possible on what I was reading at the time, but I couldn't. All that I could think about was my desire to try those amazing earphones. A few minutes later, the boy got up and went outside, probably to the bathroom. I took my chance and managed to put the earphones into my bag without anyone noticing. I'll use them for a little while and return them afterwards, I said to myself, to justify what I'd just done. But deep inside, I knew that there was no chance I was going to return them. The boy came back, maybe a couple of minutes later, but he didn't notice that his earphones were missing. I smiled. This was too easy. I tried to act normal for the next few minutes, and then I walked out of the library quietly, trying not to draw any attention to myself.
I hate the M8A7. I hate it. I hate the M8A7 with my life. Yeah. But I'm doing my grudge ones in between as well. Yeah.
Just earphones nonetheless. Nothing would happen to the guy if I just took them. I mean, he wouldn't die or something because he'd lost his earphones, right? I tried to let go of the idea and to concentrate as much as possible on what I was reading at the time, but I couldn't. All that I could think about was my desire to try those amazing earphones. A few minutes later, the boy got up and went outside, probably to the bathroom. I took my chance and managed to put the earphones into my bag without anyone noticing. I'll use them for a little while and return them afterwards, I said to myself, to justify what I'd just done. But deep inside, I knew that there was no chance I was going to return them. The boy came back, maybe a couple of minutes later, but he didn't notice that his earphones were missing. I smiled. This was too easy. I tried to act normal for the next few minutes, and then I walked out of the library quietly, trying not to draw any attention to myself. Once I was outside, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I laughed my heart out, and the same unbelievable feeling that I'd felt a few days ago while eating my unpaid-for chocolate bar washed over me again. I used my music player on my way home, and I was right. The music was much better being played through those bright-colored earphones. And just like that, I discovered my new favorite hobby, and if I say so myself, I was pretty good at it. In addition to my chocolate bar and earphone adventures, I allowed myself to grab a keychain that belonged to my dad's friend when he'd come over for dinner, a brown lipstick that belonged to my aunt, our neighbor's baseball, which he used to play fetch with his dog, as well as my dad's black and silver lighter. I mean, I don't smoke, but I just took it because it had a beautiful shine to it. Different objects that belonged to other people piled up into a giant treasure trove, and even though most of the objects had absolutely no use to me, I still found it kind of exciting to have these things that other people treasured. Even at school, I found joy in all of this. Whenever I'd go to the toilet, I used to take the tiny new things that I'd managed to borrow throughout the day out of my bag and just stare at them for a little while. Then I put them back in my bag so that later I could add them to my ever-growing pile of treasure when I got back home. I used to hide my treasure in a big box in my closet, out of sight of my nanny and my dad, to avoid a barrage of annoying questions. I came out of the bathroom holding my bag cautiously, as I didn't want the tiny bottle of perfume that I recently borrowed to break. It was my trophy for the day. I took it out during the lunch break from a bag that belonged to a girl that attended the same class as me. I ran into my math teacher in the corridor, and I said hi to her. She answered back and asked me how I was doing, then asked me if I could help her move some papers of hers from her office to her car. I gladly accepted and walked along with her. I followed her to her private room. She told me that her car was parked in the schoolyard, and since it was pretty far away, she wouldn't be able to solely move all the papers by herself. The papers were neatly divided into 2 boxes that were put on her desk. The first thing that I noticed, though, was not the boxes, but rather the shiny gold pen that had a golden engraving on it. From a distance, I couldn't read what it said, as it was all the way on her desk. She carried one of the boxes with both hands and asked me to follow her. Once she turned her back, I grabbed the pen and hid it in my pocket, as if it was nothing. Then, I carried the other box with both hands and quickly followed her. I helped her load the boxes into the trunk of her car, said goodbye, and went home. I was in my room checking some of the things that I'd borrowed throughout the day and arranging them in my special box. I totally forgot about my teacher. But I soon remembered it when I saw the little pencil case, which was full of pencils that I'd taken earlier from my weird classmates. I went to the chair on which I had carelessly laid my school dress and reached down to take the pen out of the pocket of the dress. I held it between my fingers for some time and stared at it for a while. It was finally time for me to know what the special golden engraving that was on the pen said. It turned out that it was nothing but meaningless words that were engraved by the
I'm live, everybody! Woo! Woo!
and such information. I removed
12 and 0.
But once I did, a small piece of paper that was carefully. I was so curious to know what it was, so I picked it up from the ground.
Oh, hello, can you go to my YouTube channel,
It
please?
didn't get torn apart. There wasn't much on the little piece.
Yes, it is IC Doggo. XD underscore IC underscore Doggo 12, brother.
Paper said. The words were written in thin red ink. I felt an indescribable feeling of astonishment and doubt. Who would put that piece of paper inside of the pen cap? Who would leave that message inside of the teacher's pen like that? Maybe it was nothing but a coincidence. There was no way the teacher was directing that message at me. No one knew about what I was doing. I shook my head in a desperate attempt to keep away all the notions and thoughts that were racing through my mind. I put the pen cap back on the pen.
I've got 5 hours to get
The rest of the other objects.
109 kills.
I was about to put the box back in the closet when I heard the words echoing in my mind again. But this time, it was my teacher's voice. I know what you did. I felt suspicious, and the only explanation that I could think of at the time was that my teacher had caught me red-handed.
There's part 3. Yeah, she realized that I stole her pink thingy, and then she was like, oh my god, like, Lenny, what have you done? I told you never to steal from my purse again. What did you have to go and do, Lenny? Oh my god.
I was about to put the box back in the closet when I heard the words echoing in my mind again. But this time, it was my teacher's voice. I know what you did. I felt suspicious, And the only explanation that I could think of at the time was that my teacher had caught me red-handed and that she knew about my stealing. And now I really had to admit that stealing was what I was doing. It wasn't borrowing, which I'd kept saying just to try to make it seem like less of a big deal. But there was no denying that I was stealing. Both my teacher and I knew very well that I was stealing, so she wanted to make sure that her suspicions were true. But this did not mean that I was going to let her defeat me and uncover my secret. I was neither a criminal nor a thief. I was doing what I was doing out of boredom, a desperate attempt at having some fun. The next day, I continued on as if nothing had happened. I pretended that I didn't take the pen, and I acted very normal. But at the same time, I did not feel the excitement that used to drive me towards taking things from people. And for the first time since I stole that chocolate bar, I went home and I didn't go near the box and didn't open it. Instead of spending my time staring at my stuff, I spent my time thinking about how my dad would act if he found out I was stealing. How would my friends look at me when they found out? That's if I'd even have any friends left after all of this. Especially if the teacher uncovered my secret and humiliated me in front of everyone. The next day, in math class, the teacher whose pen I'd stolen kept looking, her gaze lingering. I felt that she was looking at me with a reprimanding look, asking me in front of everybody to confess what I'd been doing. I felt ashamed. I was sure by then that she had discovered what I was doing. But actually, she just wanted me to stop tapping on the wooden desk with my pencil, as the sound it made was very distracting and annoying for everybody. On the third day, after I stole the pen, I decided to post my problem on one of the websites that helps teenagers overcome the problems that they are facing without having to reveal their identity. Everyone on the website was saying that confessing their problem made it seem smaller and easier to deal with. So, I thought that it was okay that I post my problem as long as my identity would be kept anonymous. I wrote down every single detail of my problem and waited for hours. It felt like I had been waiting for an eternity by the time someone finally commented on my post. That person wrote that I was probably a kleptomaniac. In the beginning, I didn't really understand what he was talking about, but after I googled what kleptomania was, it turned out that it was a psychological disorder that makes people steal things they don't really need, and that might not hold real value, only for the sake of momentary enjoyment, or to kill boredom. I read articles about several documented cases of people who suffered from the disorder. Some of them ended up in prison. At the end of the comment that was written by that anonymous person, he said that I had to get rid of the stolen objects, or return them to their owners, before my situation turned into an addiction. When I read the word addiction, I felt extremely worried and decided to take real steps towards solving the problem that I knew I had. I decided to return the stolen objects to their owners. It was extremely hard, and it took a very long time. Stealing things is a lot easier than returning them to their owners.
I bought this carrot all silver. I want to take her in back in the corner, have a shop with them. Grab a jumbo. I want to do
most of the stuff that I'd stolen without
I want to do a little dance.
There was nothing left but the gold pen that had that weird message inside of its cap. My consciousness couldn't bear it anymore. I needed to return the pen to the teacher, even if I had to confess to her what I'd done. But how would I enter the teacher's room again without her knowledge and without being noticed? I felt that she was following me. Then I started to notice her walking behind me in the school corridors and in class. Dining hall. I was waiting for the moment when she'd come and expose me in front of everybody. It was I had to be stronger than my fear and smarter than my teacher. I would confess to her before she could expose me. One day, I waited for her near her car in the schoolyard until she arrived. She greeted me. Then I told her that I needed to speak to her about something. I took the pen out of my pocket with great shame, and I extended my hand to her. I think that this belongs to you. I found it in class, and I kept it so I could return it to you at the right time, I said. I felt bad for lying to her, but I was too scared to confess the truth. I couldn't couldn't just tell her that I'd stolen her pen and that I was full of regret. She smiled at me and told me that I could keep it and that it wasn't a special pen. I tried to object and told her that it looked very expensive. How wasn't it special? She took it from me, flipped it in her hand while looking at it. Before she explained the situation to me, she said, "Look, dear Sammy, these engravings that you can see on the pen are painted. They aren't real gold, hence it is just a pen, like any other pen. Nothing is special about it." I cut her off and said, "But the paper that was inside it, what does it mean?" At first, she didn't know what I was talking about, so I explained. The paper that said, "I know what you did." Once again, she smiled gently and said, "There is a game that I play with my friends that is called The Inspector and the Gang Leader. A while ago, I met with my friends and it happened to be my turn to play the Inspector. I solved all the mysteries that were in the game and eventually caught the Gang Leader. The rules of the game dictate that if I suspected that someone was the Gang Leader, I must tell them, 'I know what you did,' and so I won. That pen was nothing but a little something to show that I won the competition. It isn't a big deal." After she told me the story of the pen, she just smiled, gave me the pen back, got into her car, and drove away. And I stayed frozen in my place with the golden pen in my hand, realizing how silly and delusional I'd been. This whole time, I sarcastically repeated what she said. "I know what you did, Gang Leader. I got you." The Gang Leader was me, and at the same time, I was the Inspector. Thank goodness I had that wake-up call before I got exposed in front of everybody. This was my story. Have you ever had a bad habit that you eventually got rid of? Share your stories.
Some prisoners die dreaming about the moment their feet will touch free ground, but not me. I was the only prisoner who didn't want to get out of prison. I know that you might be curious to know what the charge was that landed me up in prison, but I don't even have an answer for that, as I was put in prison without one. Even though I spent most of my life in prison, I didn't stay in there forever. My family and friends are all in prison, but that did not necessarily mean that I had to stay there as well. It took a lot of guts for me to get out of prison, but going back in, without a doubt, even harder to do. My mom was only 16 when she went to prison, a mere single moment that turned her life upside down. All her dreams vanished into thin air when she pointed a gun at a burglar that broke into her house to scare him off. It was her first time to ever hold a gun, and she didn't know how to use it. All she knew was that her mom had put the gun in her hands. She was terrified and trembling as the burglar took her money and attempted to escape through the window right in front of her. The money that the burglar tried to steal was all she had, and she was keeping it for the baby that was growing inside her, which was the reason for her mom's rage in the first place. On the one hand, there was a voice that spoke to her in the last moment before she pulled the trigger. It told her, "Don't do it, it's wrong." And then there was my grandmother's voice saying, "Do it!" And the voice of the burglar on the other end of the barrel begging her, "Don't do it." It was then that my grandmother screamed at her, telling her that she was a useless coward. She no longer heard anything, neither the voice of the burglar nor the voice of her. All that she heard was the sound of the gunshot that still rings loud in her ears even to this day. Nobody in the police station believed her when she told them that she didn't mean to do it, and all that she remembers was hearing all those voices, and then the image of the burglar lying in a pool of his own blood. The last words that my mom heard from her mom were, "You will always be a bad girl." And that was it. She was charged with murder, and she was sentenced to 35 years in prison. If she was lucky, she would get out of prison by the time she turned 40. But my mom isn't very lucky. You might be thinking, how could a 16-year-old girl be imprisoned while she was still a minor? So let me explain. There are 2 states that allow the imprisonment of those who are between 16 and 17 years of age, as they consider them to be adults. And as if that wasn't already bad enough, she also had to deal with having a mean mom, and at the same time being 4 months pregnant. She had lived her whole life in a hostile environment, and now it looked like she would die in one too. Even if the place she was in was different, it wouldn't matter. There are bad people everywhere, whether inside or outside of prison. And as for me, well, my luck wasn't much better than my mom's was. I was in her womb throughout all of this. On her first day in prison, she screamed all day and night as she desperately needed some vitamins for her baby. She was extremely exhausted and afraid that her baby would die. Her baby was the only thing that was left for her. She had to scream at the top of her lungs over and over again until she no longer could, for them to finally ask her what she wanted. She screamed because she was alone, screamed because she was miserable, screamed because her dark thoughts had taken over her, screamed because of hunger, exhaustion, and pain. She screamed and screamed non-stop, and because she spent the last 5 months of her pregnancy screaming, no one knew that while it was just her 5th month in prison, it was actually her 9th month of pregnancy, and she was screaming because the time had come. Nobody knew that the time had come for her to give birth until I joined her in her screams when I was finally born. It didn't matter so much though. The only difference was that the supervisor upsized her meals so that it would be enough for the 2 of us, and that the other prisoners looked out for Mom a bit more after she'd given birth. Although I don't have any memory of those tough days, I can honestly say that my mom's face was the only thing that kept me alive in the absence of the proper health care that a newborn like me needed. Prison was originally designed to break a person mentally, emotionally, and physically. My mom was pushed to the verge of madness while she was still a kid, but the only thing that kept whatever was left of her sanity intact was me. When I started to learn to talk, I learned the word grandmother from my mom. She used to tell me stories about my grandmother, who never visited us. My mom knew that I was the only family she had left, but I couldn't help thinking that somewhere behind the walls of the prison, I had a grandmother. It's fair to say that even though there was no blood relationship between me and the women and girls who were imprisoned with my mom, they were still like family to me. None of the guards cared about me, except one. Her name was Zoya. She had Russian roots and she used to bring me clothes and diapers. She was the one who gave me my name Vera, which means hope in Russian. She even taught me how to read and write when I turned 6, wanting to prepare me for the day on which I'd get out of prison to see a world I had no clue about.
Hello?
One day after she'd spent almost a whole day trying to convince me to sit and learn,
Hola?
I asked her, why would I learn to read and write if there's nothing for me to read or write about around here? She answered, who said that there's nothing to read? There are millions
Hola,
of
¿cómo
books
estás,
out
amigo?
there that are full of stories and information about everything in the world. Then I was curious, so I asked, and how can I get these books? She said, tomorrow I will bring you some comic books. The next day, I waited by the cell gate holding
Hello?
on to the bars, waiting for Zoya
Do you
to
speak
come.
English?
She never came. I sat day after day in the same spot, waiting for her to
Do you
come.
speak English?
Never did. Finally, I asked one of the guards who'd taken her place, and she told me that
Hello, Mr. Who's got the mic?
started to fade, but that was far from the worst thing that was about to happen to me. My mom started treating me differently.
Zebra.
To be avoided by the only person you have in the whole world.
Yeah.
And months of neglect. I didn't know what to do. One day I couldn't take it anymore. I was so mad about the way my relationship with my mom had changed. A woman who was a few years younger than my mom approached me and asked me to move away from the
What did you
I refused, so she pushed me
What
on
did you
the
buy?
floor and cut my hand. I learned in prison that everyone wants to be the tough guy, so they won't fall victim to someone else who's stronger. Everyone starts around to show how tough they are, but I didn't need to prove how tough I was to anyone. Everyone treated me like a child, but suddenly they had all stopped doing that, and I didn't understand why. I couldn't just sit back and not do anything about what that woman had done to me, so I stood up, dusted myself off, and pushed her back. But she was so big. The rest of the prisoners surrounded us and started to chant, fight, fight, fight. But the fight was over before it had even begun. Some prison guards approached us to break up the fight. One of them grabbed me by the hand and took me to the office of the chief prison warden. While we were on our way, and without any warning, she punched me in the chest. She treated me exactly like one of those prisoners. That punch somehow took my breath away, but I didn't fight back, as a prisoner's card always loses to the guard's card. I only looked at her with great anger and frustration. I looked around everywhere trying to find my mom, but I couldn't find her. Suddenly, my anger turned into gut-wrenching sobs. That guard saw the anger and misery burning in my eyes, so she looked at me and said, your eyes will get you in a lot of trouble.
I'm doing 2 guns at the same time right now.
But if you ever want to have a chance of surviving outside these walls, go back to
I'm doing my last 2 assault rifles at the same time.
She extended her hand to shake mine, which in the prison world meant that she respected me. I went into the office of the chief prison warden. I saw a pile of papers in front of him. Photos of me and my mom were on top of it. I wasn't sat in front of him because of the fight. Instead, he was about to tell me the news that would change my entire life for the worse. You are getting out of jail, he told me in a cold voice. He then said, there's a family that is going to adopt you. You will go to school, and your life here will be a thing of the past. My life in that place would not only be a thing of the past, it would be over. Forever! The procedures were faster than I expected them to be. Within 2 hours, I had my stuff packed, and I was waiting in front of the cell for the family that was adopting me. I sat there waiting for the unknown. Who was this family, and where were they taking me? And as for my mom, well, she didn't even show up to say goodbye. Why, though? A tall man wearing a suit and a short costume who was wearing a colorful dress around. The way they looked was strange to me. Why is the lady wearing gloves? I asked myself. The weather wasn't cold. Let's just say that our first meeting was okay, but not exactly comforting. I didn't want to go with them, but I had no other choice. First, I'd been abandoned by Zoya, and then by my own mom. Prisons are supposed to rehabilitate the prisoners to help them give up on the emotions of anger and help them to start over with a new life. However, prison only taught me how to stay in a corner that was full of rage, desperation, and frustration. As a 7-year-old girl who had never had the chance to explore other sides of my personality, it was hard at first for me to get along with Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, who'd adopted me. They were suspicious and calm. I felt like they were plotting something, but to my surprise, it turned out that being calm was the normal.
Can you turn your mic off, please?
And that I was the one who was constantly
Shut up.
in that normal state. After a while, I began to like them, but absolutely
But I'm streaming.
to replace the love I had in my heart for my mom. We tried over and over again to visit my mom in prison, but she refused to see us every time we went to visit her. I came back from those visiting attempts every time with 1,000 questions in my mind. The only answer that Mrs. Thompson had for me was, when you grow up, you will understand. I soon went to school, and guess what? There were a lot of books. I bought some of them for my classes, and there were so many in the library. But despite how happy I was about all these books that I could read, I felt sad for Zoya and my mom. I managed to make friends with some kids my own age, and I was very diligent in school. Everyone liked me, and I started to enjoy life outside the walls of prison. I started to spend most of my time at the library, but I always wished that my mom could be there too.
Who could do that? That's just evil. Look, let's say, somebody goes into prison. Your mom went into prison and then had you in prison. And then you spent 7 years in that prison and you was happy in there. And then they just take you away from it. And get you what's it called, adopted. After 2 hours of being told that you're gonna get adopted, imagine that.
I spend most of my time at the library, but I always wished that my mom could be there too. I felt that I needed to teach her everything that would make her life after prison better, but the only way I could do that would be by going back to prison. But I never in any way, shape, or form wanted to go back to such a place. Every day I wished that I could rid the world of all the rage and evil, so that there would be no need for use for prisons. But it seems that my wishes weren't enough to make that happen. Everything that happened to me afterwards led me to prison over and over again. It was like some kind of family curse, as if we had to live out our lives in prison. And all of this went on to happen because of a weird meeting with a stranger who claimed to be my dad. Years went by, one after another, and I turned 16. The picture of my mom's face started to fade away from my memory. I hadn't seen her for ages, so my memories of her were vanishing quickly. Even though life turned out to be pretty exciting and full of different experiences and adventures, I constantly missed my birthday. Prison. One day I was sitting at a coffee shop reading a book when the same guard that punched me in the chest years ago did. I didn't recognize her at first glance. People tend to change as the years go by, and she wasn't wearing her uniform. But when I heard her ordering a cup of coffee, I turned around and looked at her. I knew her by her voice. I still remember what she told me on my last day in prison. If you want to survive outside these walls, you have to first survive in here. Life outside isn't that different from life in here. Believe me when I say that a prisoner and a prison guard are two faces of the same coin. You might see officers as the good guys and prisoners as the bad guys, but let me tell you this. As a girl who was born and raised in prison, guards are normal people who live in the same neighborhood that prisoners come from. The only difference is they have better. I was sitting and went to sit next to her at the bar. I started a conversation with her. She was my only hope left for getting answers to all of the unanswered questions that I'd lived with for years. "Hi," I said in a faint voice. She stared at me for a few moments like she was trying to figure out where to place me. "Vera, is that you?" she asked in a surprised tone. I was so happy that she remembered me. I was very excited and felt that I wanted to shower her with questions. I could have talked to her for hours and hours, but the first question that I asked her
with questions like she wanted to ask her so much.
How my mom was. Her answer shattered my heart into pieces. I wasn't expecting the answer that I got from her, especially as I thought all these years that my mom didn't want me and that she had had enough of me. But the reality was that my mom was living her days out like some kind of nightmare, missing me so much. The guard told me that she had been mourning our parting every single day since the day I'd left prison, but she was always saying I did it for her own good. If she'd wanted me to leave prison for my own good, then why had she refused to see me every time I went to visit her? It didn't make sense to me at all, but the guard's answers cleared up some stuff for me. The day that Zoya left wasn't just her last day in prison, it was also her last day outside. She died that day. My mom couldn't bear the sight of me waiting by the cell gate for Zoya to return every single day. I was too young to understand life and death, and my mom didn't want our parting to be that hard as well. She always knew that when I would turn 7, the prison management would look for a family that would take care of me. That was why she wanted me to be tough, to be able to make it outside alone. And she wanted me to make sure that I didn't feel homesick for prison in any way. I went back home that day feeling indescribable sadness for my mom. I decided I would do everything in my power to see her again, but I never imagined that seeing her again would cost me my freedom. That same day I rushed back home to tell Mr. and Mrs. Thompson about what had happened, but I was surprised to find a strange man sitting with them. When Mr. Thompson saw me, he asked me to join them. "Vera, come and say hi to your dad," he said. After all these years? My dad? What was he doing there? What had they been speaking about? I understood that he'd come to get me. He kept on up.
Technology makes the impossible possible. We can explore new realities. Virtual friends. We can stay close from far away. Conquer new frontiers.
Asking Mr. and Mrs. Thompson about the money that they received to take care of me, how they got paid, and how much money they gave me as a monthly allowance. He didn't ask a single question about me. It was so weird that I suspected for a second time that he might be a fraud, and when he finally finished his speech saying that he will return the next week to get me, I yelled in the face of everyone present, "He's a fraud! I don't have a dad! And if I had one, he would have come to see me a long time ago." But Mrs. Thompson took me to my room and told me that I really was his daughter, and that he had my birth certificate which proved his claim. There was no way I could refuse to live with him, but the thought of moving in with him really frightened me. Imagine living with a stranger, alone. It seriously terrified me. I said my goodbyes to Mr. and Mrs. Thompson a week later and promised to keep in touch.
Go away! I hate this one guy. He just keeps on killing me.
Well, that man knew absolutely nothing about gentleness. He was foul-mouthed and never stopped swearing. He yelled senselessly at everything. One time he was getting out of his car to go into his house. I watched him through the window while he yelled and stomped, steam coming out of his ears. I was wondering what all the fuss was about until I went out to discover that he was fighting with a tiny mouse that had jumped up in front of him, but it did not stop at that. In addition to all of this, my own dad was using me. Yes, that's right, he was taking advantage of me. The only only reason he had come looking for me was because of money. He didn't even think that what he was getting because of me was enough. He forced me to leave school to look for a job at a bar so that he could take whatever money I made while he stayed home watching TV. Little by little, he started to become aggressive towards me. He never gave me anything to eat or drink and started to yell in my face for no particular reason. One time I told him that I wanted to see my mom. He refused, and that was the breaking point for me. He shut the windows and locked me in the house for more than a week. I could no longer stand living like that any longer. First, he forced me to leave the school that I loved more than anything in the world, and then that. A sweet woman like my mom was rotting in jail, while an evil, despicable person like my dad was free to do anything he pleased with no one to answer to. It was so unfair. It's sad to say that when I was in prison, I heard women speaking about the crimes that they were willing to commit when they got out of jail. I now understood that what they were speaking about was their own little plan to get back in. Maybe they understood that the world outside prison was far more dangerous than the one within. Never before could I have imagined that the day would come when I would be making a plan to commit a crime. I grabbed a chair and started to bash the windows of the house. Then I called the cops to turn myself in. The house might be the weirdest case you've ever heard of, but at least it was enough to teach my dad a lesson that he'd never forget, and put me back in prison in the process. After I went back to prison, the officer in charge wanted to make me go back home, but I begged him with all my heart not to send me back to the monster I'd been living with. I even cried hysterically so that he would let me stay in prison, but my tears weren't enough to convince him to let me stay. So I stood up and told
You know that thing was up tonight.
Did Tushy? I haven't heard that in ages, Tushy. Famous Rages.
But I hope you never forget that you were the one who sent me back there. I grabbed the chair and I bashed the window of his office with it. Now will that make me stay? I thought to myself. However, instead of being dragged back to my cell by the guards, the officer in charge asked me to sit down once again and asked me, "Why do you want to stay here so much, Vera?" I told him that my life outside of prison was horrible because of my dad, and that I didn't want anything in this world except to come back and live here in prison with my family whom I had known since I was born. He stood up and said, "All right, then fine." You might be thinking, was it really that simple? Would someone who wants to stay in prison be allowed to do so? The answer is definitely no. That officer only knew how much it meant to me to be able to go back and live with my mom. Plus, it was the only way my dad would lose legal custody over me. The moment when they were escorting me to my cell was even better than when I discovered the school library. I probably sound like a bit of a freak, right? When my mom saw me, she barely recognized me. I had grown a lot since the last time she'd seen me, but she was the same as before, as if the years that she lived without me by her had stopped the clock for her. When she saw me, she looked away. But when I called her Mom, her body suddenly trembled, and she lay down on the floor and broke into tears. I ran towards her and hugged her, and we stayed like that for 10 minutes. I broke the silence by saying, "I have come back to live with you." "But how?" she asked me. So I told her the whole story, and that's how I went back to living in prison. I won't say that it was better than my life outside, but at least it was easier than living with that monster that claimed to be my dad. My mom was both happy and worried at the same time. During the period that I stayed in prison, I taught the women in there what I had read and learned from books. I wanted to get the message across to them that life was not confined to good and evil, and that no one can tell you which side you belong to. Only you can decide for yourself to either be good or evil. I turned 18 in prison, which meant that I was free to live under no legal custody. But why would I go back to living outside when
Yes, I came second.
was better than ever? I decided not to get out unless my mom was with me, but that was not what ended up happening. One day I was wandering around the prison yard when I came across a dignified old woman that I knew very well. She was standing in the middle of the yard alone. She was looking at the sky. That woman was put in prison before I was even born. I approached her and asked, "Are you okay?" She nodded without even looking at me.
Congrats on the Hall of Fame. We were just telling Pac all about how we got started.
We're going to make a list of everything. I asked her, "Why is the sky so amusing to you? What's so exciting about it?" She held my hand in hers and asked me to tell her what I was seeing when I looked at the sky. "Clouds," I answered, laughing. She hit me on the back of my head and asked me the same question again. That time I answered with more seriousness. "I see an eagle and a plane." She asked me, "What is on the plane?" So I answered, people. She said, that's right. Now, tell me, where is this plane taking the people on board? I answered, I don't know. Does it matter? It was only then that she stopped looking at the sky and looked at me and said in a very deep and pained voice, you don't understand the true significance of life outside prison, do you? That plane is taking those people somewhere. Life outside of these walls goes by. It moves. It continues. And all of us in here, we remain stuck. We remain still. All it takes for your life to turn upside down is to look at the sky. Within a few minutes, looking at the sky made me change all that I had ever desired in life. Suddenly, the prison that I'd struggled to get back into was no longer the right place for me. I decided to resume my education and to go back to prison only to teach women about what would make their life outside the walls better. And that was exactly what I did. That time I got out of prison once and for all, and I only returned to it to finish what I'd started. I can now say with great confidence that prison made my life better, even when I wasn't a prisoner, and that I made the lives of many of those who were in prison better too, because I believed in the good that was in their hearts. Now
Yo, Blaze, just do a stupid face on the camera when you get it, because I'll be 1 second. I'm just unraveling my thing. Clip it and stuff and just show your screen once you need to get like one more kill. Huh?
Now I visit my mom in prison every week. I work and I continue.
What? Oh. You're so close to getting it. You're lucky. You grind. Yeah. Wait, what? Are you already on the bloodthirsties?
I'll trap all lines of retreat.
So that means that you've got... Wait, have you got them all with the dingo though? Yo, I cannot wait to see your face when you get it. What you seeing like? Oh my god! I just got it. Yo, do you realise it's actually not it's not satisfaction, it's satisfaction. The satisfaction of getting that is like. Yeah, the iron sight's the best. What gun should I leave till last? What gun should I use? What gun should I get last? KN. What, the KN-44? I've already got the KN-44. I can't do any of the assault rifles. Or the first two SMGs. one of the easiest. And then take a shower. Take a shower. You sure, Brother John? Swear down with chicken. I'm starting to bong. But it don't matter. But we're still pikeys. Damn it.
Like it makes you paranoid, it makes you worried, and then I don't know, maybe because you were so.
Wait, so I'm gonna leave the dingo, yeah? Till lost.
That had an impact on how she was as well. Yeah, well, maybe not the only reason. Maybe it contributed to it. She was probably destined to be like that anyway. But yeah, no, but I do think that it makes a difference. You know, you can see when you've got kids with somebody who's like all stressy all the time. As soon as they're not there, the kids change straight away. So if you change, they change.
Yeah, I just got a double kill headshot.
Yeah.
Take a shower, you sure, Brother John? Swear down with chicken. I'm starting to pong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. She don't even like me, but brother, we're still parties. This guy's got 5 more points than me, you know. Yes, I beat the
Scenario untenable. Bugging out.
first on my team, but we lost. Nah, we came. I came first on my team yet, but we lost the battle. We lost the battle, but the war goes on. What you doing, mate? Yeah, I might shove a keepering up it, you know. Can you just go and say hi on my stream, please, so I can react? Yo.
situation my mom will find when she gets out of prison. She has been through a lot already, and I refuse to let her get out only to then experience horrible atrocities again. Did you like my story? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Subscribe to the channel for more.
Yo, do you know what I got? Do you know what I got? I just got rapid fire. Bravo John. On my M8A7, yeah. Mate 7. Okay, I got 23 headshots with that. What's this? I got 48 headshots with the thing. Take a shower. It's your brother, John. Pong. Something's wrong. She don't even like me. Something's wrong. She don't even like me. Yeah, brother, so what? We're still pikeys. You're not even slightly. Chicken called his eyebrow. Something's wrong. She don't even like me. Yo, why did somebody... No, somebody disliked my thing. My guy. Yo, I'm chatting on my own stream. How does that work? Oh, water on, you know. Bow, 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 wow, bam. Bow, 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 bow. Yo, he's on a TDM. Safeguard. JJ's mine. Yo, Blaze, what are you? Don't like you. Hello, can anybody go to my channel? Yeah, go take a whiz with my Khalifa. JJ's my cheaper. Yo, look at this tingle skirt. Full blood first stage, mate. Huh? Yo, do you know the Mate A7? Yeah, but what's it called? It is so good if you have rapid fire on it. If you have rapid fire on it, that's just insane. The one thing I hate with it though is the fact that you have to use the trigger finger on it, because you can't hold it down. Okay, I've already got Antigua. What are you gonna do when you get it? Are you gonna go and jump on the floor like I did when we got that win? What's that? That's Ruffle. Roll on the floor laughing. Yeah, it's meant to be like rolling on floor laughing. Oh, bro. Mr. Rough Waffles. Fringe Nightfall, bro. You're Allier? Allier! No way, bro! Smaller. I mean, who wants that? JJ, oh my god! That Lamborghini! You had a care packy? Yo, I've already had, what's it called? I've already had Rujak 3 times and we've only got 29 kills. Rujaculate. He crashed it a year ago, you incompetent. Just learn to drive slow. Wait, should I leave the MR6 till last? To last. Yeah, but that. On line 2. Go away! This guy always knows where I am. I just want to kill it. I just want to break what's it called, the Cerberus. Reese's Puffs. Yo, do you know for my birthday or for Christmas? Do you know what? For Christmas, yeah, brother. Can I have Reese's Puffs? Reese's Puffs. Yeah, I'm joking. I don't care. Would you actually? That's sick. I'll buy you some Lion cereal. Yo, some guy in my game's called Bendy, you know. But is he a gender bender? Gender bender! It's the gender bender! Man, I do not know how many headshots I've got this game. Then take a shower. Take a shower. You sure, Brother John? I'm starting to pong. Something's wrong. She don't even like me. So what, brother? We're still parkies. Just shoot your gun up in the air. So let everybody know that he's there. Yeah, but at least then he dies. And if you keep on shooting at that's when he will move. Because he won't want to get killed. Damn it.
That 54i could use this.
Mom's precious garden again.
Mommy said first is when she was 2 short.
Anything I was witnessing. My mom was on the verge of collapsing, and I could barely keep it together. At first, I thought that I was seeing a ghost, but what I saw turned out to be very real. For the last 5 years. Lily was 2 back then. She went out with my dad, but he returned without her, saying that she had been kidnapped. He left her alone in the car for just a couple of minutes while he went to buy her some candy, but when he returned, she wasn't there. And today, here she is, standing right in front of us. She simply disappeared, and after a year of searching without any lead, her file was closed. Some people said that she must have died, whereas others thought that what had may have been a lost cause. My mom blamed my dad for his disappearance and could no longer stand living with him, so they separated. During that time, my dad couldn't care less. He married another woman, and they moved into a big, rich house. We didn't even know that he had enough money to buy some things for the kids. My mom really started going
Oh. Oh, bro. Something's so good. Man, I'm crying, look. What's that? Huh? What?
Her sadness over my sister never left her. A lot of times she'd even call me by my sister's name. It was such a horrible time.
Man, look at this tear underneath my eye.
Seeing my mom like this.
Yeah, look at this tear, Blaze.
And acting even more strangely. She started following
Blaze.
me every day. She even took out my sister's photos from the old albums and hung them up in the house. In the living room, the kitchen, her bedroom, and even mine.
Good.
She kept on telling me that she felt that my sister was going to return. And that one day, the news was going to mention my sister's return. My mom was on the verge. She no longer went to work, and she didn't allow me to leave the house, not even to go to school. She ignored all the calls that she received and locked all the windows and doors. All because she heard a story on the news about a gang that had been arrested for kidnapping kids for ransom. But I wasn't even a child anymore. It's not like we owned anything that might tempt the gang. Hope returned to her once again after she read some stories about families that were reunited with their children after they'd been missing for a year. But like, come on, my sister had been missing for 5 years. I had to accept the reality of it all and move on. But it didn't stop there. My mom
That was a good headshot.
killing me. I was no longer allowed to go outside because she feared that the same fate would happen to me. I totally understood where she was coming from, but I couldn't take it any longer. I wanted to live my life like other kids my age. Was I asking for too much? Once my friend threw a party and she invited all of our friends. I wanted to go to this party more than anything else in the world. I begged my mom over and over to allow me to go, but she refused. So for the first time ever, I snuck out. I told my mom that I was going to sleep, and then I put pillows on the bed. I covered them with my duvet so it would look like I was lying under there. This way my mom would think that I was fast asleep. I was sure that my plan would work out the way I wanted. At the party, I felt anxious at first, but then I quickly relaxed. After exactly an hour, my mom was standing right in front of me. I couldn't believe this woman. She wouldn't even give me space to breathe. She came to me to the party with her. Everyone was looking at me whispering. I even heard one call my mom a lunatic. All the way home, she kept yelling at me and lecturing me, but I couldn't handle it anymore. I yelled and
worse, but you'd be wrong. I had nowhere I could run to. I only had my mom, who turned crazy, and my dad, who was living with his wife. My dad, well, didn't exactly have
Yo, Blaze, when you get to, what's it called, try and keep it at like 40 kills.
had hot chocolate in some cafe. Then he disappeared until the next Christmas rolled around. I thought maybe if I went to my dad and convinced him to let me stay with him instead of in the prison with my mom, my life would get better. You might think that sounds selfish and ungrateful, but hear me out. I seriously needed his help. I mean, my mom wasn't a normal person anymore. I decided she needed actual medical help. She was losing it. The next day, I stared out of the window. The window was quite high up, and I never really thought it through. I hurt my leg when I jumped, but at least I was still able to walk. It was pitch black outside. My dad's house was only 3 blocks away, so I
Let's get the fire, so.
First time that I've ever walked alone at night. I kept imagining a car stopping and kidnapping me. Okay.
I've got a blood test now.
All those ideas were put there by my mom. Look what she'd done. It had worked. I was officially terrified. Though when I arrived, I wish I hadn't even come. I wasn't welcomed at all. My stepmom kept me on the porch and didn't even let me into the house. I sat shivering in the cold for more than an hour waiting for my dad to arrive. When he finally did, I thought that he'd at least ask me why I'd come here. But what he did, he started shouting in my face, telling me he didn't see any more problems and that he didn't
It was my second UAV of the game, and literally I used, and I could have had a care package, but I didn't use my care package. Guardian.
What am I doing with my dad at such a late hour out of the house? Did my mother know that I'm with my dad, or did he ask me not to tell her?
Wait, are you gonna make a video or are you gonna stream?
Where does he want to take me?
What, make a video?
Was that the policeman began to ask me questions about my lost sister? I mean, how was that even connected to me running away from home? I never imagined that it was possible to actually miss being at home with my mom.
Damn it, no. What, you need 3 revenge medals?
What was going on? She hugged me tightly and said, I'm happy I didn't lose you too.
Just remember the guy's name and then go after him.
I thought that it was my mom who called the cops and reported me missing, and that the
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just in the game. Or just give me a couple minutes, I'm just in the game. Huh? Yeah. What the hell? I do not know. Because I'm lagging. Hello, it's Bender. Go away!
a car accident, and after interrogating my dad, the police were able to find all the other children who had been kidnapped by my dad.
Damn it.
The family insisted to be with my sister when she returned home so they could apologize to my mother about all the pain they had caused her. I'm not sure whether my mom will ever accept their apology, but I knew she was glad her daughter had finally returned home. This story sounds like the plot of some insane movie, right? But unfortunately, it is true. After my mom calmed down and collected herself, she didn't even care to hear the whole story. All she wanted was to hug my sister again. It is hard for my sister to understand everything that happened. She is barely 7 years old, but at least she is safe with her real family now. What do you think of my story? Crazy, right? Please share your comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to this channel for more stories.
No! Go away! Let me get some kills! Yes! I came first! Thank you, Bender. You're so thank you so much. Hey, FRKO X47X. Can you just say hi in my stream? It's called XD_IC_Doggo12. Yo, Blaze, it's called My Story Animated, or Actually Happened, and there's another one, I don't know what it is.
Honestly just looked like she belongs on the cover of some awesome rock and roll magazine. And I was like, okay, when I'm older, I want to be just like her. Her name was Rosie, and we somehow always seemed to be on the same ship. The more I got to know her, the more I realized how much we had in common.
I've got 70.
And she even played the guitar, too. She was studying English literature at one of the local colleges. And I told her that's what I was wanting to do.
I've got 77 thingies. Please, is that high caliber? No, that's intensity. Please give me something good. BRM camo. Oh, bustle! Bushwhacker, yes! Yes! Let's go! Yes! Bushwhacker! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Yes! It looks so sick! See you, everybody.